Remember that story out of Richmond, Virginia, where an FBI field agent wrote an internal memo suggesting that they start tracking Catholics that go to traditional Latin Mass, maybe get some informants in there, follow them, check out their suspicious activity. After all, they're they're celebrating Mass in Latin. They've got to be extremists. They've got to be right wingers. They've got to be racist. They've got to be terrorists. Well, we were told by Christopher Wray, the director of the FBI, and other apologists for the FBI that that was just a memo. It was a one off, should have never done it. And no follow up was done. Nothing ever came of it. Nothing to worry about. You're not being persecuted because you go to Latin Mass. Although we might not believe them, because the Daily Signal actually has a story right now that suggests that there were members of a parish in Northern Virginia, Linden, Virginia, who actually did attend traditional Latin Mass and they saw, well, some suspicious activity. Joining us now to discuss that story and more from the aforementioned Daily Signal, he's the managing editor. He's Tyler O'Neill. Okay, Tyler, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Larry.
So Linden, Virginia, it's in Northern Virginia. It's kind of a rural area, about an hour away from Washington, D.C. I only know this because I've been to their winery. Great wine
Oh,
in
nice.
Linden, Virginia. We love our Virginia wine. And what did you learn here from parishioners at this parish who actually attended Latin Mass?
Yeah, so two of the parishioners on two separate occasions observed what they believed to be FBI vehicles. I mean, these are the typical fairly sizable SUVs with the black tinted windows and with what the parishioners thought they saw, laptops in the center console, which is a clear giveaway that this is almost certainly a law enforcement vehicle.
Mhm.
They witnessed these vehicles driving very slowly through the parking lot, looking as though they were taking license plates for further surveillance of people who were attending the Latin Mass. As soon as these parishioners left the Mass and left the catechism events at which they were and proceeded to go to their cars, the vehicles, which they suspected were the FBI vehicles, suddenly disappeared. They drove away from the parking lot as if they wanted to hide what they were doing.
When did this happen exactly?
So this is a very interesting. Both of these sources told me that this happened in February. I believe it was like February 12th, February 18th. This These are Sundays that were after the FBI claimed to have withdrawn the memo about targeting radical traditional Catholics, a
Hmm.
memo that cited the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it raises a lot of alarm bells. Like maybe, maybe these agents didn't get the memo that the memo was rescinded. Maybe they had already planned for this. Or I mean, it is possible that this wasn't the FBI, but the FBI claims that they had no knowledge of this activity, but I doubt they would fess up if indeed it was them.
So, I mean, clearly it appeared to be surveillance activity of some kind. There's no way to know if it was the FBI or some other law enforcement agency, but what was observed was definitely, and again, this was at a parish that celebrates the traditional Latin Mass, which was specifically targeted in this FBI memo, and they appeared as though they were just slow rolling and recording license plates of the cars of those who were worshiping, practicing their First Amendment right of religion.
Yes, and so Christopher Wray said that when he heard the news about the memo, he was shocked, he was appalled. The FBI would never ever do anything like this.
Hmm.
But it's interesting that the memo exists because, back in 2018, a certain attorney general by the name of Jeff Sessions said very publicly that he had directed the FBI never to cite the Southern Poverty Law Center or other organizations that demonize people based on what they believe. And suddenly this memo comes into existence. This
Yeah.
very much suggests to me that there's another memo that most likely was promulgated by Attorney General Merrick Garland or someone under him directing the FBI, rescinding the previous memo that they
Yeah.
can't cite the Southern Poverty Law Center.
Yep, and it sure looks like standard operating procedure over there. What was usually there's no response from the FBI or DOJ, but did they respond to any inquiries about this report?
Yeah, they told me that the local office that handles that area had no knowledge of the activity, which, that's a very interesting denial because there could be another FBI office that did have knowledge, and
That's right.
perhaps the FBI agents were from that other office. Therefore, they have plausible deniability that this office didn't know. Maybe someone at the office did it in secret or did it on their own time. Who knows what
Yeah.
actually is the truth here?
You know what would be a great response from the FBI? A great response would be, "We would never do something like that. That's outrageous. People have a First Amendment right to free practice of religion. That's not
Right.
suspicious activity." But they didn't give that answer, which I find to be fascinating. All right, Tyler, you also did another story over at Daily Signal that I think is really fascinating. I'm one of those guys who stopped using Google quite a bit ago. I use Bing from Microsoft. That's the search engine that they use. And I thought that they weren't quite as well editorial as Google was. But you've done the research, and apparently it's actually worse over there at Bing.
Yeah, so this was really shocking to me because I know a lot of conservatives who use Bing instead of Google. And what happened, to be clear, this wasn't me. This was an organization called All Sides, which is
Okay.
very focused on monitoring bias in search engine results. And they have a wonderful chart that shows, they've brought together Americans of all different perspectives to rank various news outlets based on how far to the right and to the left that they
Right.
are. And
And then based on
these
those rankings, they tracked the results for news stories. We got the graphics here, so let's take a
exactly
look. First, let's look at how Google delivers news and information based on searches. There you go. I mean, that's not too unsurprising. 61% of the results for a news search, again, this is news, comes in leaning on the left, 25% in the center, 3% on the right. Yeah, that's pretty much what I expected to see from Google. That's awful. It's
right.
terrible. The problem is Bing is even worse. Let's take a look at Bing. Tyler,
Yeah.
that's insane. So literally
83%.
zero.
Yeah.
They didn't get any results on the news page from what would be considered a right leaning news outlet.
Yeah, not one single, and I mean, this is flabbergasting because Fox News Digital has one of the biggest digital imprints, on the internet. And
Right,
when Google News's homepage, which had that 3%, when Google News's homepage features a conservative leaning outlet, generally it tends to be Fox News Digital. But on Bing, for the period that was analyzed, not one single conservative leaning outlet made it to the homepage of Bing News. And
right.
you know, that's inexcusable. So they're silencing Town Hall, they're silencing Fox News Digital, they're silencing the Daily Caller, the Daily
Daily Signal.
Signal, Washington Times,
Yeah.
all of these Washington Examiner, like not one single one made it to the Bing News homepage.
And that's not an accident. That's algorithm. That's in the code. That's by design. That sort of thing doesn't happen accidentally. Not 0%. Tyler O'Neill, thanks for joining us. We'll just go straight to that. We won't rely on a search engine. We'll just go right to dailysignal.com and find all the great work you're doing there over at the DS. The kids like to call it the DS. Thanks, Tyler. There's more to come on O'Connor tonight. Just wait. Apparently, that whole, oh, it's a right wing myth, they're going to ban your gas stoves, not so much of a myth after all. We'll give you the facts next. You're watching O'Connor tonight on Salem News Channel.